TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. Israel is set to decide on a gradual intensification of the war against Islamist Hamas and its terror affiliates in the Gaza Strip, which may include the conquering of the enclave in its entirety. Washington dubs an international conference on a two-state solution, which took place late last month, as an unproductive publicity stunt. Jerusalem calls out Moscow over its disinformation campaign against Israel. Israel is set to decide on a gradual intensification of the war against Islamist Hamas and its terror affiliates in the Gaza Strip. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a meeting yesterday to discuss strategic military issues with Defense Minister Israel Katz, Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, and IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, alongside additional senior security officials. During the meeting, which lasted approximately 3 hours, General Zamir presented options for further operations in the war in Gaza. Consequently, at the conclusion of the meeting, a decision was made to present to Jerusalem's Security Cabinet a plan to conquer the entirety of the Gaza Strip for it to review and approve. This meeting is scheduled to be held tomorrow. It is important to know that the refer to option for expanding the war versus the terror groups in Gaza, upon approval of the Security Cabinet, will include taking control of the central enclave as well as Gaza City, a measure that will effectively complete the IDF's conquest of the Gaza Strip in its entirety. Meanwhile, in Washington, U.S. President Donald Trump was asked on whether he supports Israel reoccupying the Gaza Strip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would you support Israel reoccupying all of Gaza, as has been suggested by some Israeli officials?
Well, I don't know what the suggestion is. I know that we are there now trying to get people fed. As you know, $60 million was given by the United States fairly recently to supply food, and a lot of food, frankly, for the people of Gaza that are obviously not doing too well with the food. And I know Israel is going to help us with that in terms of distribution and also money. We also have the Arab states are going to help us with that in terms of the money and possibly distribution. So that's what I'm focused on. As far as the rest of it, I really can't say. That's going to be pretty much up to Israel. Yeah, please.
Meanwhile, in New York, during an emergency session of the United Nations Security Council, the international institution's representative voiced deep alarm over prospects of an Israeli decision to reoccupy the Gaza Strip.
The latest reports regarding Prime Minister Netanyahu's possible decision to expand Israel's military operations through the entire Gaza Strip, if true, are deeply alarming. This would risk catastrophic consequences for millions of Palestinians and could further endanger the lives of the remaining hostages in Gaza.
It is important to know that the majority of speakers representing member states of the Security Council and involved non-state actors and institutions unabashedly spouted libels and disinformation against the State of Israel, to include, of course, Russia, China, and the Palestinian Authority, among others. The Russian representative, for his part, happily seized the opportunity to bash both Israel and the United States, particularly also for the decision by both Washington and Jerusalem to boycott a Saudi-French high-level conference in support of the internationally aspired two-state solution, which was held late last month.
Очевидно и то, что полная свобода рук израильтян.
It is evident that Israel's complete freedom of action would have been impossible without direct military support and international political cover from the United States. Illustrative in this regard was the joint U.S.-Israeli boycott of the high-level international conference in support of the two-state solution, held from July 28th to 30th, as well as Washington's futile attempts to dissuade its partners from participating in this representative forum. A certain degree of optimism comes from the fact that, despite open pressure from the Americans, most members of the international community were not intimidated and demonstrated solidarity with the Palestinian people. Some Western capitals, albeit belatedly, have even announced plans to recognize the State of Palestine as early as next month.
In response to the Russian attempt to twist the facts for the purpose of its own anti-Western interests, the United States emphasized that it viewed last month's conference on a two-state solution as an unproductive publicity stunt.
We must be clear that unproductive publicity stunts, like last week's two-state solution conference and unilateral announcements regarding recognition of a Palestinian state, undercut the efforts of mediators and prolong the war.
Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar, who attended the meeting himself, was less diplomatic vis-à-vis Moscow's cynical lies and disinformation against Israel.
But we also heard here so many lies. I cannot refer to them all, but it was really funny to hear Russian Federation representative, after 3 years and a half of a brutal invasion and brutal war in Ukraine and bombardments on civilian population in Kiev and other places, speaking here the way he spoke. I also heard the Palestinian representative. I must say the Palestinians learned propaganda from you, from the Soviet era, and you were good teachers. The Palestinians invented terrorism as a way to promote their means, and it includes all Palestinian fractions. And until this very day, the Palestinian Authority continued to pay salaries to terrorists and terrorist families accordingly to the crime the terrorists committed. And this is how they encourage terrorism until this very day. You spoke about peace. From 1947, you had countless opportunities to reach peace. You rejected them all.
Jerusalem's top diplomat continued by stressing the objective facts on the ground in contrast to the subjective falsehoods which the Islamist Hamas and anti-Israel actors are actively disseminating globally.
Hamas and Islamic Jihad use the starvation and torture of hostages as evil tools. It's part of a deliberate and well-planned sadistic propaganda campaign. Its goals: 1, psychological terror. 2, an attempt to create a link between our starved hostages and their blood libel against Israel. But it's a campaign of lies. Israel facilitated huge amounts of aid into Gaza since the beginning of the war, in an unprecedented way in the history of wars. And by the way, the quantities are growing every day, if you follow that. Yet it is still accused of starvation. But the truth must be told. Hamas sadistically starves our hostages while the terrorists enjoy meat, fish, and vegetables.
In contrast to the blatant lies hurled at Israel, Minister Sa'ar also highlighted that Jerusalem is in fact providing the residents of the Gaza Strip unprecedented levels of humanitarian aid, volumes that were never distributed by any state actor in the history of warfare.
We're facilitating huge amounts of aid into Gaza. No other country acts this way in war, on such a large scale, under such difficult circumstances. But Hamas loots the aid and uses it as a financial tool. We hadn't heard a word about that from the Palestinian representative. The distorted Hamas terrorists cruelly decide if and what the hostages will eat, mainly what they will not eat. Eviatar spoke of entire days when he did not eat at all. Our sick and starved hostages still have not seen representatives of the Red Cross until today, despite this being explicitly agreed upon in the hostage deal in November 2023. The medicine they desperately need to survive has not reached them. While the terrorists, the murderers being held in Israeli prisons, received medical care and nutrition, Hamas and Islamic Jihad torture our hostages.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. As we continue to face significant trials and tribulations today and the days and months ahead as well, I would like to encourage you, pray for the hostages, first and foremost in Hamas captivity. Pray also for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Also, if you're blessed by our programs and are able to stand with us, since TV7 Israel is exclusively donation-based, you can donate via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. I'm Jonathan Hessen, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.